Hi guys, it's Sophie. Foster's here with me as always, and today I'm going to be doing my February wrap up for you. I haven't read that much in February, partly because I'm reading a lot of non-fiction. I read that an awful lot slower, so that's something I need to keep in mind when I'm trying to read more non-fiction this year, is that I'm probably going to read less overall, which I'm fine with, but maybe just to expect that. Yes, so I'll get into the books. I read 5 non-fiction and 3 fiction this month. So kicking off non-fiction, I have I'm Telling the Truth But I'm Lying by Bassie Ickby, and this is a sort of memoir essay collection around the author's experiences of having bipolar disorder. I would recommend this one for people who enjoyed the collected schizophrenias. I think it's in a similar, they speak to one another in terms of demystifying and destigmatising a mental illness that people have maybe stereotypical views about what that looks like and how that presents and what those people are like, and I just really enjoyed reading her kind of story and her experiences, and though what I have is very different to what she has, I found I could empathise with quite a lot of the kind of emotions she was talking about. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. If you're into mental health non-fiction, this is definitely one to keep an eye out for. And then the next one I read is another mental health non-fiction, and that is The Great Pretender by Susanna Cahalan. Susanna Cahalan wrote Brain on Fire, which was her story about being diagnosed with a really rare neurological condition. I think it was kind of an inflammation in her brain that gave her schizophrenia-like symptoms. And this is her talking about a specific experiment that happened a while ago in psychiatry, where a group of students essentially pretended to be mad. So they listed a number of symptoms they would express and were admitted to mental hospitals, and it's about how they were treated when they were in there, how easy it is to get in, how hard it is to get out. I think the only thing I was missing from this, because I did really enjoy it overall, was more conversation about how this experiment and the sort of story around it implicates things in psychiatry today. That was the only bit I was missing, but I really enjoyed it, and I'd not seen this story told in a book anywhere else, and I think it's fascinating, so I'm really pleased that there was one written, so if you're interested in it, do go pick this one up. The next one that I read was my annual dive into the more right-wing side of non-fiction, which I do to keep my fingers in and know what's kind of happening, and that is The Madness of Crowds by Douglas Murray. I didn't get on with this book at all, but I didn't really expect to, so I'm going to talk more about kind of what I learnt. If I'm honest, I really struggled with this one. I felt as though if a lot of these things had been said on Twitter, I'd have the sense I was being trolled, so I found it really hard to engage with and connect with the ideas behind it. I really honestly tried, and I really struggled. It was a lot of conversation about how various sort of minority rights movements, so talking like feminism, civil rights, trans rights more recently, equal rights for queer people, how essentially the author feels that they've come to their natural conclusion, equality has been gained, and the continuation of these groups is now providing oppression against straight white men, and yeah, I couldn't get my head to that place. I just couldn't do it, but I gave it a go, and that's what matters. I try and do this every now and again. And the next one I have is The Five by Hallie Rubenhold, which is a book about the victims of Jack the Ripper, and this really kind of debunks a lot of myths about Jack the Ripper, and specifically like the Ripper fandom. I don't really know what to call it. I think they have Ripperologists, so people who are super into Jack the Ripper and think they can figure out all these crimes. I know that there's an allure because they're unsolved and there's not so much evidence. People find it really fascinating, but in this book, Hallie Rubenhold is just redirecting our attention to the fact that the victims were real people, and that a lot of the things we think we know about them are mistruths and rooted in misogyny that existed at the time and continue with the misogyny we have today. I enjoyed this as much as I was ever going to enjoy this, so history is like a big button that just like stops me in my tracks from loving stuff. I had a really bad experience with history when I was a kid at school. Like, I had a teacher who was a proper dickhead, and I think since then it just doesn't interest me. I just don't have a draw to it the same way I do to other fiction or non-fiction subjects. But I liked the themes. I just found the day-to-day life and the fact it was all kind of historical day-to-day life, I found that quite dull. But that is definitely just me. I know that about myself. And then the last non-fiction I have is Safe, on Black British Men Reclaiming Space by Derek Owosu. And I really like this one. This is a collection of essays written by a number of different Black British men, and they're talking about their experiences of living in the UK and the racism that comes with that. And there's a lot of different topics in here. So like there's a guy who's bisexual, a guy who went to like a really well-off school and what that felt like, and things like the dress code and hair codes and stuff and how that impacted him. And I think the reason I was so interested in picking this one up, and I'm so glad I did, is I've definitely read more around in fiction and non-fiction the experiences of black women, and what I have read about black men tends to be based in the States. So I thought this would be a really interesting one because I've not ever read anything written by Black British men like about what it's like living in the UK now. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I haven't heard that many people talking about this one, so if you're interested in that kind of topic, that experience, I would recommend. And then I have 3 fictions for you guys. The first one is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Byung, and this book is so beautiful, first off. It really is, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's done quite so well. The story follows a young boy who, it's kind of a coming of age novel, so he starts off as a young boy and turns into kind of a young man by the end, and his experiences kind of with his mother and his interaction with his kind of familial history in Vietnam, and what he can share with his parents and what he can't, but it also touches on him growing up and finding out that he's queer and he's gay, and yeah, there's a lot in here that is very difficult to read, like really difficult subject matter, but the beauty of the way it's written is what carries you through, and I think the juxtaposition of those two things is what made me really love this book. I know pretty much everyone's already talked about it and read it, so yeah, you probably already read this one, but I just thought I'd share my thoughts here. And then the next one I read was Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson, and this is one I wanted to read for a really long time and hadn't got my way around to. It's about a young girl who becomes pregnant and her decision to keep the baby and how that decision impacts kind of the rest of her life and her family. I did like this one. It's kind of like a family saga, which normally isn't my like top pick. If you had to like choose me like a range of storylines, probably family drama comes fairly low, but I did enjoy it. I did think it was really well done, and yeah, I can tell why loads of people have been talking about it. I think the writing felt really clear. I don't know how else to describe it. It felt like you could see exactly what the purpose of all of the things they were saying was. Does that make sense? And I really enjoyed that. I read it very quickly, and it flowed really nicely, but I think just because it's that kind of family drama, like deep family drama, it didn't immediately grip me the way it might have done otherwise. But yeah, I really liked it. I definitely read more of what she's written. And the last one I have to show you is Fleshman is in Trouble by Taffy Brodessa Akner. And this is like, I really like this one, though I can tell why it's been a bit of a Marmite. So this follows a man who is recently divorced, and he feels like he's had a really hard time of it, and his wife hasn't given him very much attention, and he just generally feels like it's a bit rubbish, and he's kind of been like a very all-suffering martyr. And basically his wife absconds. She leaves him with his children, and it's him telling the story of him being recently divorced and trying to cope with these children in his life. The thing is, the reason I love this so much is I think this is done with such a sense of irony. The author is a woman, and whilst the book is mostly in the perspective of our main character, it does change perspectives, which might help you if you're someone who thinks, oh, I don't know if I want to read that. And I actually found it really funny and really self-aware, so I really enjoyed it, but I can also understand how, especially if I hadn't read all of it. Reading it straight you might be frustrated, but I just thought it was really clever. So I would definitely recommend this one if you have been on the fence, though I'm fully aware it's not everyone's cup of tea. So yeah, there's this one. I genuinely think it was very clever and very funny, so that's my 2 cents. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed hearing me talk about what I've read in January. It feels like it's been a really long January this year. Like, I can't believe we're only at the end of January now. But yeah, those are the things I've read. I've enjoyed the vast majority of them. You know, there's only been a couple that haven't quite hit it for me, and one I hated, which I think is pretty good, and I'm excited to read more in February. The reason I didn't film last weekend, just very briefly, is because I'm coming off of my medication, my quetiapine. I've been on it for a really long time, and it's a drug that one of its like main things is that it's really sedating, and coming off it I've had really bad rebound insomnia, and I've also had to do like all my work and my master's study, and when I've got very low energy then it's really hard to do things like film on top of all of that, so please do just bear with me. This weekend's been a lot better. Yesterday was crap, but I had a nap in the middle of the day and then slept fairly well last night. I only woke up a few times, and not for very long, so I feel so much better today than I have done in quite a while. So I thought I'd film, but just so you guys know, that's kind of where I'm at. So if I disappear, it's not that I don't want to be filming, it's that at the moment it's quite hard to try and get myself to be able to do that, as well as all the other things I have to do. And I also think I'm getting a little bit ill, which is unsurprising because I've probably had 2 nights, last night being one, in the last 3 weeks where I've slept more than 5 hours. So I'm just a little bit like running low anyway. But yes, so you guys will see me soon. Just don't be put off if it isn't every single week, or if sometimes I'm making more videos and putting more out, rather than spreading them out, just because I want to do what I can do when I can do it. So hopefully that's okay. I'll see you soon in my next video, and yeah, leave me a comment down below if you're interested in any of these books or read any of these books, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!